Two quick questions. Is there anyone here who disagrees with the idea that when ministers from the 27 governments get together to do their part in the law-making process, they should meet in public? Anyone disagree with the idea they should meet in public? Okay. Second question. How many here have read the Lisbon Treaty? Okay. So the crucial question is this, because I've been 5 years ago this sort of question came up, and I said a referendum is an absolutely mad idea. There's about 300 things in the Constitution or the Lisbon Treaty that make a difference. Most of them very minor, for example, and many of them which we would support. Probably the majority of them we would support, like, for example, less secrecy, more openness. So what you actually need is not a referendum, yes or no. You need a multiple choice questionnaire. And you can't do that unless absolutely everyone has read the treaty. It's like an examination. If there's going to be any sort of referendum, then it has to be, are we in the European Union or are we not in the European Union? The rest of it has to be left to elected parliaments and governments. On the other question of Barack Obama, well, one of the issues most close to my heart is Palestine and the Middle East. I've been to Gaza twice since the beginning of the year. I was the only politician there during the course of the bombing, British politician that got in during the bombing. All I can say is that Obama offers hope of the possibility that there just might be movement that will bring Israel and Palestine into a situation where two states can live alongside one another as part of a bigger solution which brings peace, perhaps to the whole Middle East. We start to see things unrolling next week when Obama meets Netanyahu in Washington and then goes to Egypt and thereafter meets the Palestinian president. I mean, I think what Obama is doing is very, very interesting, and just could be that this man is going to solve a problem which has just led to so much grief for so many years, for so many people.
Thanks very much. On the point, the question has been asked about how can we trust any of the three main parties. Well, let me just give a bit of background on this referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, because at the last general election, all the three main parties, Labour, Lib Dem and Conservative, went to the polls at that election saying, if you vote for us and we become the government of this country, we will give you a referendum on the European Constitution, as it was called then. It's now called the Lisbon Treaty, but it's essentially the same document. And the party that Chris Davies is a member of, the party he represents in the European Parliament, put that pledge to the British people and were returned, although he personally says he wasn't in favour of that referendum. That was his party's manifesto pledge. What happened after that general election? Well, the Labour Party refused us a referendum in the House of Commons. The Lib Dems thought about it long and hard, summoned all their courage and decided to abstain. Not only that, the few members of their front bench who actually had the courage to carry out their manifesto commitment and vote for a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty in the House of Commons were then promptly sacked by their party leader, Nick Clegg. So we all know where Labour and the Lib Dems are coming from on this. They've ratted on their promise to the British people, and they've ratted on their commitment to give us a referendum. And only the Conservative Party have stayed true to their commitment. We voted for a referendum in the House of Commons, and what we're saying is if you want that referendum, then send Gordon Brown a strong message on June the 4th that you want it and vote Conservative. On the question of withdrawal from the European People's Party, we have not ratted on that promise, and we will deliver that. The new delegation after June the 4th to the European Parliament will not sit with the European People's Party. We will find alternative parties across the EU. Well, the elections haven't happened yet, Chris, so we don't know what party is going to be returned, but we will deliver on our commitment, and we will not sit with the most federalist group in the Parliament after June the 4th.
Find some nice homophobe.
Thanks very much. Let me start by saying the Labour Party said absolutely that we would have a referendum on the Constitution. But when France and when the Dutch kicked it out, there was no longer a constitution to have a referendum on. The Lisbon Treaty is not a constitution. The clue is in the title. It's a treaty. It is considerably changed. It's, my facts here, 43,000 words long as opposed to the original constitution that was 154,000. And that's why there is not a referendum on it. But it's not just, the people inside the Labour Party that say that. The Tory front bench have said that there doesn't need to be one, including Ken Clarke, who, and I can quote if you want, but basically said that it was a bad idea to have a referendum on such an issue. The second part about enforcing transparency, I think that the whole idea about enforcing transparency is about engaging people more. There's a lot of people who don't engage with the European Parliament, with the European ideal, for whatever reason. We've all been out door knocking, and some of us are getting sent away, some of us are being welcomed. But we are constantly faced by people saying, well, I don't know what Europe does. Europe does, as we've tried to kind of express a little bit today, an awful lot for people, but maybe it's time for people to get involved and become part of the questioning and the processes and say exactly what it is you're doing. And as for Obama, well, thank God for Obama. George Bush was just, the dog-turd words comes back into mind. He started well, he's given us hope. He's certainly stirred up the economy in America, and he's beginning to get some results there. But I think we've got to be realistic and say he's only had 100 and so many days. He's got quite a few years left of his first term before we start thinking about it. Yes, he's working with Palestine, yes, he's working with Europe, and he's beginning to show that he could possibly make that difference, that he could actually make the US accountable for what they do. And under 8 years of Bush, the one thing that America would never do would be accountable, or certainly Bush was never accountable for the horrendous butchery that he caused.
Okay, right. I think the first question was about, remind me. That was it. But I think, to be honest with you, the question that was asked there is, what group do the Tories sit in the European Parliament? It's real deck chairs on the Titanic stuff. It doesn't matter what group in the European Parliament they sit with, because the European Parliament is an amending chamber. The law is made by the European Commission. So the Tories can chest beat all they want about, we'd have a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, but we'd still be a member of the EU regardless of the result. So we'd still be wasting our money on it, we'd still have no control over our laws, we'd still have red tape and crazy ideas. So it doesn't really matter. Now about this thing, the Constitution and the Lisbon Treaty are different. Well, they're not different. And the reason they're not different is because the guy who wrote it, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, said they were the same thing. They are the same thing. They are. They are exactly the same thing. And the reason that they're not having a referendum is because they know what the result will be. It will be no. And even if they had a referendum, the European Union has a track record of ignoring results it doesn't like. Denmark, the Maastricht vote in 1993. Ireland, the Nice Treaty vote. France voted no to the Constitution. The Netherlands voted no to the Constitution. Ireland said no to the Lisbon Treaty, and on each occasion the EU said, sorry, no actually means yes, you have to vote again. Now, the second point was about how do you enforce, transparency. I think that the Romans used to say, who guards the guardians? I think that what you really need is to look at civil servants within the European Union and basically train them up and say, well, look, this is how you detect fraud. And while I'm on the subject of EU civil servants, a former EU Commission chief accountant, Marta Andreasen, has recently released a book. She noticed serious fraud in the EU Commission. She refused to be involved in it. She refused to sign off on the treaty, and she was eventually dismissed. She's since joined UKIP, and she's one of our candidates in the southeast. She said that if she's elected, she will sit on the budgetary committee to find out how our money is used. Now, the final point about Obama, I think that he's done a few things that I do welcome. I think the closing of Guantanamo Bay, I think he did need to close that because it was harming so many things. I think the problem with Obama is that if you put someone on a pedestal, sometimes they can disappoint you. I think that we need to bear in mind that, yes, a lot of things Obama has done and promised are very positive, but if you put someone on a pedestal too much, they might not be able to hit it. He is a man after all. I'd wish him every luck, and we'll see in 4 years if he's done the job.